Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield audio podcast.
Well, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. How stunning. Almost no one predicted this. In fact, none of the major analytical organizations, none of the major polling organizations, none of the major media organizations anticipated anything like this. I sat in my office in Nashville, Tennessee, most of the night of the election and could not believe what I saw happening. I don't mind you knowing, and many of you will remind me, I'm sure, that I had predicted a victory for Hillary Clinton. That's not what I wanted. I'm not a Clinton supporter, but just looking at the electoral math, looking at the major polls, running around the major states in my mind and on paper, I thought Hillary Clinton would win by a couple of points. It's what I've been saying for months. It's what I've expected since the beginning of this election season. I knew that Donald Trump had, of course, won the Republican nomination, and I knew that many on the right supported him, but he had run a fairly poor campaign. Other than just hammering the same themes over and over again, he had few ideas. He made huge mistakes. Anyone who knew anything about his life or career knew of his, well, I'll just call them immoral tendencies. Sitting on the Howard Stern show, talking about threesomes, the video that got released late in the campaign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We all know what I'm talking about. We all know about his statements disparaging Mexicans. We all know about his the treatment of blacks at his gatherings. We all know about just the bad language, all of the things that he has said and done, and very, very few ideas, very, very little content. And yet he is now president of the United States, or will be come January. It's a stunning reversal. And I want to say again that I am happy to admit that I was wrong about who would win this election. No hiding at all. I did the math. I analyzed it myself. I listened to people much smarter than me, and I had Hillary Clinton by about 2%. That's what I had expected. That's what I told friends. And I think I had said this on this podcast repeatedly. The issue is not that I might have been wrong, because that's relatively minor overall. The issue is that the entire apparatus that is devoted to anticipating such things did not have this conclusion. No one expected this kind of victory for Donald Trump. In the last 2 weeks, I've been on conference calls that have been discussing whether there was a possibility that Republicans might even lose the House. I didn't think that was going to happen, but some people were actually up in arms about that. To win the House, the Senate, and the White House, almost no way. So we awakened here. I'm recording this first thing on November 9th, 2016, the morning after the election. And the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump has not just with challenge, not just with any kind of questionable numbers, but decisively taken the presidency of the United States. And so we enter a new era. We enter an era that is going to be very, very tumultuous. Let me give you a few thoughts about why this happened, although we'll be talking about this at the university level for centuries and at the pundit level for months. And then let's talk about some things that we can expect in the wake of this. First of all, what's very obvious is that the polls failed us because people either weren't answering those polls or they weren't telling the truth. The fact is that Donald Trump polled a larger number of Latinos, even blacks, and definitely women than anyone expected. Also, there was a higher voter turnout among just middle-class Americans. Some of the disappointment some of the disillusionment that has set in recent years was not there this time. The fact is that Donald Trump did energize that base. And by the way, it was not just a white base. It's middle-class America. Because, again, when all the numbers are in, and we're already seeing this, women voted for Trump in larger numbers than expected. Latinos did. So did blacks. Pretty stunning. I don't think we're dealing with a politics of race here. I think we're dealing with something else. And I think what we're dealing with is a move that happens from time to time in American history, which is throw the bums out. Andrew Jackson did it. Ronald Reagan did it. No one thought these people had a chance. And the mainstream, the old guard, you might even call them the elites in D.C., wouldn't have anything to do with any of these people. They ran against the elites. They ran against those who establishment Washington, so to speak. It was a tone that resonated with the average guy in the street, and so he turned out in greater numbers. And when it resonates with the average guy in the street, it resonates across the board: men, women, Latinos, blacks, wealthy, unwealthy, etc. And so that's what's happened this time. Donald Trump, who you have to admit ran a pretty bumpy campaign, nevertheless sounded a tone that won the hearts of the street, so to speak. This is one of the most stunning political defeats and stunning political victories in American history. It really is. And I'm not a professional class pundit here, so it doesn't bother me to be wrong at all. But the fact that the numbers I was counting on, the way I was counting noses, the stats that we had, the information we had in from both campaigns, you have to understand that not even the Trump people believed that this was going to happen. This caught everyone by surprise, and even those who are Trump supporters, even Trump pollsters, no one had these numbers. So it's pretty stunning. Why did it happen? Well, first of all, it's that populist theme that I'm talking about with Donald Trump. Americans distrust their government. They see that Congress isn't going anywhere. They see that the Obama administration, despite his personal popularity at about 52%, is waning. People are very disturbed by Obamacare, very disturbed by a lack of response to ISIS, very disturbed by the division in the country, and just simply don't trust the elites. But I'll have to say, too, that part of the problem, and I'm certainly not saying it's the only problem, but part of the problem is that Hillary Clinton was, just as Donald Trump is, by the way, but was a very flawed candidate. She represented the establishment, so to speak. She represented the old guard. She represents, again, this sounds like I'm almost taking this from Donald Trump's speeches, but even the left-leaning press is saying this morning. Having been in the White House during the Clinton administration, having then been a U.S. Senator, Secretary of State, she is identified with what's wrong in the political class of America. When the emails came out, when the arrogance about the man on the street and the disparaging of the man on the street came out in what was said, when some of her aides just said horrible things. And then, of course, the lack of wisdom of dabbling in the occult and writing about it when mainstream America is Christian. All of this just did horribly. And, of course, we'll be discussing things like the FBI director's actions for a long time because there's no question that had an effect, too. But Hillary Clinton was a deeply flawed candidate. I had to tell you, most of the people I know, and certainly I, celebrate the idea that a woman might be president, left, right, or center. It's not a sexist thing. It's not about Hillary Clinton. As a woman, but her political ideology. And I think probably the corruption factor. There's no question the Democratic Party worked against Bernie Sanders. There's no question that Democratic Party officials illicitly supported Hillary in ways that shouldn't have happened, like at debates and what have you, feeding questions, all of this kind of thing. It's not really much in question that this is what happened. And so at the last minute, what's very obvious is that many people either turned or activated, and that's very much what's going on. I'll tell you that there's so that at this point is about all the analysis I have as to why here. This surprises everyone. I happen to know through channels that it surprises Donald Trump. It surprises everyone. This was not expected. This is not what people thought was going to happen. Some will attribute it to God. Some will attribute it to a great uprising of the American people and the nobility of the American people. Some will attribute it to a white backlash, which I don't believe that it is. I don't think there's as much racism in this country as our recent politics would tend to indicate. But there we are. Donald Trump wins. He wins handily. He was way up in the Electoral College, up more than expected in the popular vote. No challenges even possible. Hillary Clinton's going to concede later this morning. She's giving her speech at about 9:30 Eastern here on the 9th. I'm sure she is devastated. Many are. I'm watching some of the leaders of the left just almost have to fight tears. It is a very, very odd day. What we're going to find going forward is that there is going to be a great deal of fear, I believe, amongst those who see Donald Trump as a persecutor, or as someone who does not have their interest at heart. I can understand being a young black person, and as you know, if you listen to this podcast, I teach many, go to church with many, have many friends, African American, given where I go to church in D.C., given what I do in D.C., just given how I live. I would say a vast majority of my friends are black. And not that gives me any street cred. I'm just simply saying that having listened to them, I can understand why they are afraid in the current situation, why they are concerned about Donald Trump. I've told stories on this podcast about young blacks going to Donald Trump rallies and being beaten up and then having someone get on the cameras afterwards and say, well, maybe next time he comes, we'll have to kill him. I'm not saying that represents Donald Trump, but that was the feel, and I can understand why they're afraid. I can certainly understand why my Kurdish Muslim friends are concerned. Donald Trump at one point talked about not only stopping immigration, but very tight, even unconstitutional controls on the Muslim population in America. Of course, if you're Hispanic, you're thinking in terms of walls. You're thinking in terms of things Donald Trump said about a Hispanic judge in his Trump University case. So it's a time of fear. It's a time of division. The thing that is going to, I think, be the most difficult for many of you that listen to this podcast is the way that conservative evangelicals, conservative Christians backed Donald Trump. Now, this is one of the most openly immoral men we've ever had run for office. That's not necessarily even a judgment on my part. He does talk about regretting his past indiscretions, but this is a man who has engaged in very serious unrighteousness from a Judeo-Christian perspective, and it was widely known. This is no mystery. Anybody paying attention to him knows this. So oddly, he had strong support from conservative Christians, from religious broadcasters who prayed for him and quote unquote anointed him with oil at the beginning of the campaign, from people on the right. And I have to say, I understand at the core why they would lean, of course, Trump more than Clinton, in the sense that if you are pro-life, if you are concerned by the very left-leaning and libertine agenda of the liberal party that's been in the liberalism that's been in power for the last 8 years or more, then you would naturally respond by going with Trump, who at least says that he is pro-life, that he has traditional values, that he wants to undo the Johnson Amendment, that he wants to restore religious liberty in America, and that he wants to empower the guy on the street. All of that is music to the ears of those who have felt disenfranchised at a religious level. Here's the problem. Two things. The fact is that these religious supporters of Donald Trump are going to be perceived by the rest of the country as having visited Donald Trump upon us. So now evangelicals, former religious right, conservative Christians are owning Donald Trump. The problem with that is basically that we're not 100% sure who Donald Trump is. Laying questions of competence aside, the fact is that you can see online, you can go on YouTube and see a video, some of which it's a montage, a collage of different interviews that Donald Trump has done. And the fact is that some of these views that he's representing are within the last decade. He's in favor on this video of partial birth abortion. He's in favor of gay rights. He's in favor of a national health care system. He's in favor of, I could go on and on. He's definitely pro-abortion, definitely pro-partial birth abortion, as I've said. You can just go on and on and on and on. And these are views that he's held, definitely in his recent adult years. So if there's been a change that was never brought out during the campaign, the rest of the country is saying, well, maybe I can see why you evangelicals would go for him for assuming he holds some of those views, but are you sure? And now, of course, can he actually execute? So there's a lot of division. There's a lot of upset. I'm hearing left-leaning leaders, even on television this morning, say we're not going to go down without a fight. But for one party, for conservatives, to hold the House, the Senate, and the White House means that Obamacare is almost certainly going to be undone. Means that a number of other actions on the part of the Obama administration is going to be undone. Means that a sort of a liberal consensus in America that has dominated for quite some time and seemed to be quite popular is going to be undone. So Donald Trump needs to act. He needs to act decisively. He needs to act wisely. Perhaps the best that can be said for those of us who we're concerned about both candidates at the top of the ticket. The best that can be said about Donald Trump is that probably not having a lot of experience himself, he's going to pull around him some of the better conservative leaders. He'll pull around him wiser heads. He'll listen to advisors, we hope. The bottom line for me today is that I'm intrigued. I'm actually fascinated by how we got, how our information was so skewed. And some people listening to this podcast will say, well, that's just, the establishment not paying attention to the mainstream. No, I'm talking about actual processes of analysis. I'm talking about statistical analysis that all political streams, left, right, and center, use. Those proved inaccurate in this election. They've proved somewhat inaccurate in times past. I think that may have been political bias. But I want to say again, no one had these numbers. No one anticipated this. And that's interesting, not just as an intellectual issue and a university issue. It's interesting because it means that something in the actual system has so dramatically changed that the old way of doing these analyses are it just is not valid anymore. A few positive things I want to say before I close. First of all, I do believe America is strong enough to endure whatever is coming. I do not believe that racism and hatred at the street level is so severe, is as severe as people have presented. I believe that neither of the candidates would just instantly destroy America. It's a great time for all of us to reach out across race lines, across age lines, across political lines, across gender lines, and tighten things up and heal and reassure at the local level. Ultimately, all politics is local. There's a limit on how much D.C. can do, even when one party dominates. And so be an agent of healing. There's good news in this, that there probably is going to be some populist reworking of American government. It's strange that Donald Trump would be the man sounding the trumpet on that, given that he's far from a populist. But he at least sounded a tone that reached into the bowels, the guts of the American people. We will get through this. We will have a country, I think, that may be better on the other side. There will be some upheaval. There are going to be there's going to be some anger. There's going to be some backlash. There's going to be some fighting. There are going to be some sit-ins. There are going to be some riots. People are scared. People are upset. But the fact is that our country is strong. Our country is solid. Some needed corrections are probably going to happen. Some things are probably going to go badly. But ultimately, there is still a God who rules. There is still a God who guides the heart of kings and presidents like a watercourse. There is still a God who does as he wishes with the peoples of the earth, and who sets one up and puts another down. And I appeal to him. I do not appeal to American politics. I pray constantly to him for this nation, and I believe that good things can happen. I sit here stunned this morning at what has happened. I sit here concerned about Donald Trump's inexperience and the fact that the gap between his promises and his ability to deliver at a personal level is pretty massive. But there are good people in this country, good advisors, experienced political leaders who will probably advise him. I'll pray for some good folks. I'll pray for healing in this country, and I will pray that that some of the tides that have been destructive in this country will roll back. Anyway, Donald Trump is president of the United States. Hillary Clinton did the best she could do. She now, I believe, will not be president, will not run again. Her political career is probably coming to an end. A fascinating woman, and she deserves credit for having gotten this far, even if she didn't break that ultimate glass ceiling she had hoped to break. Let's pray for our country. Let's be the change that we want to see. Let's not contend violently or attack viciously, but let's contend for righteousness as we understand it.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and The Miracle of the Kurds. His new book is Ask the Question: Why We Must Demand Religious Clarity from Our Presidential Candidates, available on Amazon. Learn more about Stephen at stephenmansfield.tv. The Stephen Mansfield podcast is directed by Isaac Darnold, who also wrote, produced, and performed the podcast theme song. This is a Chartwell Literary Group production.